I never thought a joke could change everything, but here I am, months later, still thinking about the way Marcus held me that night. The way his arms felt around me, strong and certain, like he'd been waiting his whole life for that moment. He said he was just joking when he pulled me close, whispered those words against my ear. But jokes don't make your heart stop beating. Jokes don't make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself, about him, about us. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. It started the way most complicated things do, with something simple that should have stayed simple. Marcus and I had been friends since college, the kind of friendship that survives late nights, bad decisions, and the gradual drift that comes when life pulls you in different directions. We'd managed to stay close even as careers took us to different cities, different lives. When I moved back to our hometown last spring, it felt natural to fall back into our old rhythm, like no time had passed at all. Marcus worked construction, had since graduation, and his hands showed it. Calloused and strong, always moving, always building something. I'd gone the corporate route, spent my days in meetings and spreadsheets, but when I was with him, all of that felt distant and unimportant. He had this way of making everything feel more real, more immediate. When Marcus laughed, really laughed, it was like the whole world got brighter. We'd fallen into a routine of Friday night drinks at Murphy's, this dive bar that hadn't changed since we were kids sneaking beers behind the building. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where conversations happened in shorthand because we'd all been having the same arguments for 20 years. It was comfortable, familiar, safe. That particular Friday started like any other. Marcus was already at our usual table when I walked in, 2 beers waiting, his work shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He looked up when I approached, and something in his expression made me pause. There was an intensity there I hadn't seen before, or maybe I'd been too blind to notice it. "Rough day?" I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. "Something like that." He took a long drink, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "Been thinking. Dangerous territory for you," I said, trying to lighten whatever mood had settled over him. It was an old joke between us, but he didn't smile. "Maybe." He set his beer down, finally looked at me directly. "Been thinking about a lot of things lately." There was something in his voice, something that made the air between us feel different, charged. I'd known Marcus for 8 years, had seen him through breakups and job changes and family drama, but this felt new. This felt like standing at the edge of something I couldn't see the bottom of. We talked about work, about his latest project renovating an old Victorian downtown, about my struggles with my new boss who seemed to think weekends were suggestions rather than requirements. Normal things, comfortable things, but underneath it all was this current I couldn't name. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. The way his fingers drummed against the table, restless and uncertain. After the 3rd beer, the conversation had shifted to high school memories, the kind of nostalgic rambling that happens when you're drinking with someone who knew you when you were young and stupid and thought you had everything figured out. Marcus was telling a story about the time we'd gotten detention for skipping chemistry to play pool at the rec center, and I was laughing, really laughing, when he stopped mid-sentence. "What?" I asked, still grinning. "Nothing." But he was staring at me with that same intensity from earlier, like he was trying to memorize something. Just nothing. The silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable exactly, but loaded with something I couldn't identify. The bar was getting crowded, the noise level rising, but it felt like we were in our own bubble, separate from everything else. "Want to get out of here?" Marcus asked suddenly. I nodded, though I wasn't sure why. We left money on the table and walked out into the cool evening air. Spring was just beginning to give way to summer, and the night felt full of possibilities I couldn't name. "My place?" he asked, and I nodded again. Marcus lived in a small house on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that looked like it had been built by someone who cared about details. He'd bought it a few years ago, had been slowly fixing it up room by room. I'd helped him paint the kitchen the previous summer, had spent countless evenings on his back porch drinking beer and talking about everything and nothing. We settled on his couch with fresh beers, the television on, but neither of us really watching. The silence from the bar had followed us here, that sense of something hovering just out of reach. Marcus seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. He was the most steady person I knew, the kind of guy who never met a problem he couldn't solve with his hands and some patience. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Since when do you need permission?" He smiled at that, but it didn't reach his eyes. It's kind of a weird question." "Weird how?" "Just weird." He took a drink, set the bottle down carefully on the coffee table. "Have you ever wondered what it would be like if things were different between us?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I felt something shift in my chest, a recognition I wasn't ready to name. "Different how?" I asked, though I thought I knew. "You know how." His voice was quiet, careful. "Different." I didn't know. Had known, maybe, for longer than I wanted to admit. Those moments when our friendship felt like it was bumping up against something else, something bigger. The way I noticed things about him I shouldn't notice. The way certain conversations felt charged with meaning I couldn't decode. "I don't know," I said, which was both true and completely false. "Yeah." He nodded, looked down at his hands. "Yeah, me neither." But the question was out there now, real and unavoidable. I found myself really looking at him, maybe for the first time. The way his dark hair fell across his forehead, the line of his jaw, the way his shoulders filled out his shirt. When had I started noticing these things? When had Marcus stopped being just my friend and become— what? "It's stupid," he said, shaking his head. Forget I said anything. "It's not stupid." The words came out before I could stop them, and Marcus looked up, surprised. We stared at each other across the small space of his living room, and I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into something vast and terrifying and maybe wonderful. "It's not?" he asked. "No." My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. "It's not stupid." Something shifted in his expression, hope and fear mixing together. He set his beer aside and moved closer on the couch, close enough that I could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "I've been thinking about it a lot," he said quietly. "About us. About what we could be. Marcus, I know it's crazy. I know it could mess everything up." His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. "But I can't stop thinking about it. About you." The touch of his hand sent electricity up my arm. I'd held hands with plenty of people before, but never like this, never with this weight of possibility behind it. His palm was warm and rough from work, familiar and completely foreign at the same time. "What are you saying?" I asked, though I thought I knew that too. "I'm saying I think I'm falling for you." The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them back for a long time. "I'm saying I think I've been falling for you for a while now, and I don't know what to do about it." The confession hung between us, raw and honest and terrifying. I looked at our joined hands, at the way his thumb was tracing small circles on my skin, and felt something inside me crack open. "I don't know either," I whispered. "But you feel it too?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. Because I did feel it, had been feeling it without understanding what it was. The way my pulse quickened when he called, the way I found excuses to spend time with him, the way other relationships had started to feel hollow and incomplete. "So what do we do?" he asked. "I don't know." We sat there in the quiet of his living room, hands still joined, both of us afraid to move forward and unable to move back. The television flickered in the background, some late-night movie neither of us was watching. Outside, the world continued on, oblivious to the fact that everything had just changed. "Maybe we don't have to figure it out all at once," Marcus said finally. "What do you mean?" "Maybe we just see what happens. Take it slow." I looked at him, at this man I'd known for so many years, and felt like I was seeing him clearly for the first time. The careful way he was watching me, the vulnerability in his expression, the way he was holding my hand like it was something precious. "Okay," I said. "Okay. Let's see what happens." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise, bright and warm and full of promise. He squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, and for a moment everything felt possible. We talked until late that night, the conversation flowing easier once the truth was out between us. We talked about when we'd first started noticing each other differently, about the fear and confusion and hope that had been building. Marcus told me about the day he'd realized his feelings had shifted, watching me help his sister move into her new apartment, the way I'd been so patient with her kids, so gentle and careful with her fragile things. That's when I knew, he said, watching you with Emma and the kids. I thought, this is the person I want to build a life with. I told him about my own moment of realization. A few weeks earlier when he'd shown up at my apartment with soup when I was sick with the flu. How he'd stayed to make sure I was okay, had fallen asleep in my chair watching over me, and I'd woken up to find him there and felt something click into place. I kept telling myself it was just gratitude, I said. But it wasn't, was it? No, he said softly. It wasn't. When I finally left that night, it was with the promise to see each other the next day, to continue this conversation in the daylight when everything felt less intense and more real. Marcus walked me to my car, and for a moment we stood there in his driveway, not quite sure how to say goodbye now that everything had changed. This is weird, I said, and he laughed. Good weird or bad weird? I don't know yet. He reached out and touched my face, just briefly, his thumb brushing across my cheek. It was the first time he'd touched me like that, intimate and tender, and I felt it all the way down to my toes. Good night, he said. Good night. I drove home with my heart racing, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. When I got to my apartment, I sat in my car for a long time, trying to process the magnitude of what had just shifted between us. Marcus, my friend Marcus, who I'd known for 8 years, who I'd never thought of as anything other than a friend until suddenly I couldn't think of him as anything else. The next few weeks were a careful dance of discovery. We'd agreed to take things slow, to figure out what this new dynamic meant without rushing into anything we couldn't take back. But slow was harder than either of us had expected when every conversation felt charged with new meaning, when every casual touch sent sparks through both of us. We still met for our Friday night drinks, but now there was an undercurrent to everything. The way Marcus would catch my eye across the table and smile, like we were sharing a secret. The way he'd let his hand brush mine when he reached for his beer. The way the space between us seemed to hum with possibility. This is torture, he said one night as we walked to our cars after leaving Murphy's. What is this? Pretending nothing's changed when everything's changed. I knew what he meant. It was like trying to ignore an earthquake while the ground was shifting under your feet. We'd been friends for so long that all our patterns were established, but now those patterns felt inadequate, too small for what was growing between us. So what do you want to do about it? I asked. He stopped walking, turned to face me in the dim light of the parking lot. I want to kiss you, he said simply. I've wanted to kiss you for weeks now. The honesty of it took my breath away. Marcus had always been direct, but this was different. This was him laying his heart bare, taking the risk of rejection. Then why don't you? I asked. Because once I do, there's no going back. Once I kiss you, we can't pretend this is just friendship anymore. Maybe I don't want to pretend anymore. Something shifted in his expression, hope winning out over fear. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could see the way his pulse was jumping in his throat. Are you sure? He asked. Instead of answering, I closed the distance between us, stood on my toes, and kissed him. It was supposed to be a simple kiss, a test, a way to see if the chemistry we'd been feeling translated into something real. But the moment our lips met, I knew there was nothing simple about it. Marcus kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus and attention, like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. His hands came up to frame my face, and I could feel the calluses on his palms, the strength in his fingers. He tasted like beer and something uniquely him, something I wanted to memorize. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. Wow, I said. Yeah. His forehead rested against mine, and I could feel his smile. Wow. We stood there for a long moment, foreheads touching, sharing the same air, both of us grinning like idiots. So, Marcus said finally, I guess we're doing this. I guess we are. That kiss changed everything. Not just between us, but inside me. It was like Marcus had reached into my chest and turned on a light I didn't know was there. Suddenly, all those relationships that had felt incomplete made sense. All those times I'd wondered why I couldn't seem to connect with anyone the way I thought I should. I'd been looking in the wrong direction. We started spending more time together, but now it was intentional, deliberate. Dates, though we didn't call them that at first. Dinner at the Italian place downtown where Marcus insisted on paying and I let him, even though we'd always split checks before. Movies where we sat closer than necessary, his arm around my shoulders, my head against his chest. Long walks through the park where we'd grown up, talking about everything and nothing, our hands linked between us. It was Marcus who first said the word boyfriend, about a month after that first kiss. We were at his house, cooking dinner together, something we'd done dozens of times before, but which now felt domestic and intimate in a way that made my chest tight with happiness. "Pass me that spoon," he asked, and when I handed it to him, he caught my wrist, pulled me close, kissed me softly. "Thank you, boyfriend." The word hung in the air between us, and I felt my heart skip. "Boyfriend," I repeated, "if you want to be." Suddenly, he looked uncertain, like he'd overstepped. "I mean, if that's what this is. If that's what you want." "Yes." The word came out more forcefully than I'd intended, and Marcus's face broke into that sunrise smile again. "Yes, I want to be your boyfriend." He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I could taste his relief and joy in something that might have been love, though neither of us was ready to say that word yet. But even as we settled into this new reality, there were challenges. We'd been friends for so long that everyone in our lives knew us as a unit, Marcus and Jake, the inseparable duo. Explaining the shift to family and friends felt daunting, especially when we were still figuring it out ourselves. Marcus's family had always been more conservative than mine, and I could see the worry in his eyes when he talked about telling them. My own parents were generally accepting people, but I'd never brought home a boyfriend before, had never even mentioned being interested in men. The thought of those conversations made my stomach twist with anxiety. "We don't have to tell anyone yet," Marcus said one evening as we sat on his back porch, watching the sun set over his small backyard. "We can take our time." "But I want to tell people," I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. "I want people to know you're mine." The possessiveness in my own voice shocked me, but Marcus smiled, reached over to take my hand. "I want that too," he said. "I want everyone to know I'm yours." We started small. I told my sister first, during one of our weekly phone calls. Sarah had always been my closest confidant, the person I turned to when life got complicated. "I need to tell you something," I said, pacing around my apartment with the phone pressed to my ear. "Oh God, are you sick? Did you lose your job? Are you moving again?" "No, nothing like that." I took a deep breath. "I'm seeing someone." "That's great. What's her name? How did you meet her?" "Actually," I said, my heart pounding, "his name is Marcus. And you already know him." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Marcus," she said finally. "Your friend Marcus?" "Yes. Your best friend Marcus, who you've been in love with for years and too stupid to realize it, Marcus?" "I haven't been in love with him for years," I protested, then stopped. "Have I?" Sarah laughed, the sound warm and familiar and reassuring. "Oh, honey. Yes. You absolutely have. I've been waiting for you two to figure it out since college." "Really? Really?" Mom and I used to talk about it. "We kept wondering when you were going to wake up and realize why none of your other relationships worked out." The relief was overwhelming. I'd been so worried about how people would react, but Sarah's acceptance felt like a gift. "So you're okay with it?" I asked. "I'm more than okay with it. I'm thrilled. Marcus is a good man, Jake. He loves you. Anyone with eyes can see that. And more importantly, he makes you happy in a way I've never seen before." "We haven't said we love each other yet," I said. "Maybe you haven't said it, but trust me, it's there. It's been there for a long time." After I hung up with Sarah, I felt lighter, more confident. If she could see it, if it had been obvious to the people who knew us best, maybe this wasn't as crazy as it sometimes felt. Marcus had a harder time with his family. His parents were good people, but they came from a generation and a background where being gay was something that happened to other people's children, not their own. When he finally worked up the courage to tell them about us, the conversation didn't go as smoothly as mine had. "They need time," he told me afterward, his voice carefully controlled. We were at my apartment, and he was sitting on my couch with his head in his hands. "They said they need time to process." "That's not a no," I said, sitting beside him, my hand on his back. "It's not a yes either." I could hear the hurt in his voice, and it made something fierce and protective rise up in my chest. I wanted to call his parents, to make them understand how incredible their son was, how lucky I was to have him, how their reaction was breaking his heart. "They'll come around," I said instead. "They love you too much not to. What if they don't? Then that's their loss." I turned his face toward mine, made him look at me. "Marcus, you are the best man I know. You're kind and generous, and you work harder than anyone I've ever met. You make me laugh every single day, and you make me want to be a better person. If they can't see that, if they can't see how happy we make each other, then that's their problem, not ours." He kissed me then, soft and grateful, and I could taste the salt of tears he was trying not to shed. "I love you," he said against my lips, and my heart stopped. "What? I love you." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes bright with unshed tears and something that looked like wonder. "I'm in love with you, Jake. I think I have been for a long time." The words hit me like a physical force, knocking the breath from my lungs. I'd known this was where we were heading, had felt it building between us, but hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that terrified and thrilled me. "I love you too," I said, and watched his face transform with joy. We held each other on my couch as the sun set outside my windows, both of us crying a little, both of us laughing at ourselves for crying. It felt like everything I'd been searching for without knowing I was searching, like coming home to a place I'd never been but had always belonged. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of my life. Being in love with Marcus was like discovering a new sense, like suddenly being able to see colors I'd never known existed. Everything felt more vivid, more meaningful. Food tasted better, music sounded richer. Even mundane tasks like grocery shopping became adventures when we did them together. We fell into domestic routines that felt both natural and miraculous. Marcus would come over after work, still dusty from the construction site, and I'd have dinner waiting. Or I'd stop by his place on my lunch break, and he'd make me coffee in the kitchen he'd renovated with his own hands. We'd spend evenings on his back porch or mine, talking about our days, making plans for the weekend, just being together. The physical aspect of our relationship developed gradually, naturally. We were both nervous at first, unsure of ourselves in this new territory. But Marcus approached making love the same way he approached everything else, with patience and attention and a desire to get it right. Our first time was clumsy and sweet and perfect in its imperfection, and afterward we lay tangled together in his bed, both of us grinning like we'd discovered some wonderful secret. I started, then trailed off, not sure how to finish. "Yeah," Marcus said, understanding anyway. We got better at it, more confident, more attuned to each other. Marcus was a generous lover, attentive and intuitive, and being with him felt like coming alive in ways I'd never experienced. But more than the physical pleasure was the emotional intimacy. The way he looked at me like I was something precious, the way he held me afterward like he never wanted to let me go. Work became a distraction, something to endure until I could get back to Marcus. My colleagues started commenting on my improved mood, my increased productivity. I was happier, more focused, more engaged with life in general. Love, it turned out, was good for me. But not everything was perfect. The situation with Marcus's parents remained tense and unresolved. They'd stopped calling as frequently, and when they did, the conversations were stilted and uncomfortable. Marcus tried to pretend it didn't bother him, but I could see the hurt in his eyes every time his phone rang and it wasn't them. "Maybe I should talk to them," I suggested one evening. We were at his house, and he'd just gotten off a particularly awkward phone call with his mother. "No," he said quickly. "That would just make things worse." "How do you know?" "Maybe if they met me, if they saw how much we care about each other." "Jake." He turned to face me, his expression serious. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this isn't something you can fix. They need to work through this on their own." I wanted to argue, wanted to find some way to make this easier for him, but I could see in his face that pushing would only hurt him more. So I let it go, held him instead, and tried to be patient. My own family's reaction had been overwhelmingly positive. My parents had invited Marcus to Sunday dinner, and watching him charm my mother with stories about his renovation projects while helping my father fix a squeaky door hinge had filled me with so much pride in love I thought I might burst. Sarah had taken to calling him her brother-in-law, which made him blush and grin every time. "Your family is amazing," he told me as we drove home from one of these dinners. "They love you," I said. "Almost as much as I do." "Almost. Well, I love you most." He reached over and took my hand, brought it to his lips to press a soft kiss to my knuckles. "I love you most too." It was during one of these family dinners that my father pulled me aside, ostensibly to help him bring in firewood, but really to have a conversation. "You seem happy," he said as we stacked logs by the fireplace. "I am happy." "Good." He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Your mother and I, we always wondered about you and Marcus. Even when you were in college, there was something there. Really, really. The way you talked about him, the way you lit up when he called. We used to joke that you were more married to Marcus than some actual married couples we knew." I laughed, remembering all the times my parents had teased me about my friendship with Marcus, how they'd always made room for him at family gatherings, how my mother had sent him care packages during finals week. "We're glad you figured it out," my father continued. "He's a good man. He makes you happy. That's all we want for you." The acceptance, the love, the way my family had embraced Marcus and our relationship so completely made the situation with his parents even more painful by contrast. I wished I could give him the same unconditional support I'd received, wished I could make his family see what mine saw so clearly. Things came to a head on a Saturday in late summer. Marcus and I had spent the day at the lake, swimming and lying in the sun, just enjoying each other's company. We'd driven back to his place as the sun was setting, both of us relaxed and happy, planning to grill burgers for dinner and maybe watch a movie. But when we pulled into his driveway, his parents' car was parked in front of his house. "Shit," Marcus said under his breath. "It's okay," I said, though my heart was suddenly racing. Maybe this is good. Maybe they're ready to talk. Marcus didn't look convinced, but he squeezed my hand before we got out of the car. His parents were sitting on his front porch, his mother in the rocking chair he'd built for her birthday, his father standing with his arms crossed. "Mom, Dad," Marcus said as we approached. "What are you doing here?" "We came to talk," his mother said, her voice carefully neutral. She looked at me, then away. "Hello, Jake." "Mrs. Rodriguez," I said. "Mr. Rodriguez." The silence stretched awkwardly until Marcus unlocked his front door. "Come in, I guess." We all filed into his living room, the space suddenly feeling too small for all the tension and unspoken words. Marcus and I sat on the couch, his parents in the chairs across from us. Nobody seemed to know how to start. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," Marcus's father said finally. "About what you told us. About this." He gestured vaguely between Marcus and me. "And," Marcus's voice was carefully controlled. "And we don't understand it," his mother said. "We don't understand how this happened, how you went from being friends to this." "It's not something that just happened, Mom," Marcus said. "It's something that grew over time. Something that was always there, maybe, but we were too scared to see it." "But you were friends," she insisted. "Good friends. Why couldn't you just stay friends?" I could feel Marcus tense beside me, could see the hurt and frustration building in his expression. Before he could respond, I found myself speaking. "Because we fell in love," I said simply. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I know this is hard to understand, and I know it's not what you pictured for Marcus. But we fell in love, and that's not something you can just ignore or wish away. You could try," his father said. "You could try to go back to being friends." "Would you ask a straight couple to try to go back to being friends?" I asked. "If Marcus had fallen in love with a woman, would you tell him to ignore his feelings and just be friends with her?" "That's different," his mother said. "How? How is it different?" The question hung in the air, and I could see them struggling with it, trying to find an answer that made sense. "Because it's not natural," his father said finally. "Dad," Marcus's voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "Don't. It's how we feel, son. We can't help how we feel. And I can't help how I feel either," Marcus said. "I can't help that I fell in love with Jake. I can't help that he makes me happier than I've ever been. I can't help that when I think about my future, he's in it." His mother was crying now, quiet tears that she tried to wipe away discreetly. "We just want you to be happy, Mijo." "I am happy," Marcus said. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. Jake makes me happy. This relationship makes me happy. Can't you see that? We see that you think you're happy, his father said. But what about later? What about when you want a family? Children. There are lots of ways to have a family, I said. Adoption, surrogacy. Gay couples have children all the time. It's not the same. Maybe not, Marcus said. But it would be ours. It would be our family, built on love and commitment and all the things that actually matter. The conversation went on for another hour, circular and painful, neither side able to fully understand the other. Marcus's parents weren't cruel or hateful, just confused and scared and clinging to ideas about how life was supposed to work. But their inability to accept us, to see how good we were together, how much we loved each other, was breaking Marcus's heart. Finally, they left, promising to keep thinking, to keep trying to understand. But the promise felt hollow, and after they were gone, Marcus collapsed onto his couch like all the fight had gone out of him. I'm sorry, I said, sitting beside him, pulling him into my arms. It's not your fault. I know, but I'm still sorry. I'm sorry they can't see what I see when I look at us. What do you see? He asked, his face buried against my shoulder. I see two people who love each other. I see a relationship built on friendship and trust and genuine affection. I see a future full of possibilities. I pulled back to look at him. I see home, Marcus. When I look at us, I see home. He kissed me then, desperate and grateful, and I could taste the salt of his tears. We held each other on his couch as the sun finished setting outside. Both of us hurting, but both of us sure of what we had together. I don't want to lose them, he whispered. You won't, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. They love you too much. They'll come around. And if they don't, then we'll build our own family. We'll surround ourselves with people who love and support us, and we'll be happy anyway. It was a promise I meant with every fiber of my being. Whatever happened with his parents, whatever challenges we faced, I was committed to this relationship, to him, to the life we were building together. The months that followed were a test of our relationship in ways I hadn't expected. Marcus's parents remained distant, polite but cool when they had to interact with us. They came to his birthday dinner, but left early. They sent Christmas cards, but didn't invite us to their annual holiday party. It was death by 1,000 small cuts, and I watched it wear on Marcus day by day. But we also grew stronger during this time. Adversity, it turned out, had a way of clarifying what was important. Every challenge we faced together, every difficult conversation we navigated, every moment we chose each other over the easier path, made our bond deeper and more unbreakable. We moved in together that spring, almost a year after that first conversation on his couch. It wasn't a dramatic decision, more like acknowledging what was already true. We were spending every night together anyway, and maintaining 2 apartments was starting to feel silly and expensive. Your place or mine? Marcus asked as we discussed the logistics. Yours, I said without hesitation. I love your house. I love what you've done with it, how it feels like home. It feels like home because you're in it, he said, and kissed me softly. Moving in together was an adjustment, but a good one. We had to negotiate space and routines, figure out whose dishes to keep and how to merge our book collections. But mostly it felt like settling into something that had always been meant to be. I loved waking up next to Marcus every morning, loved the way he looked with his hair messed up and his face soft with sleep. I loved making coffee while he showered, loved the domestic rhythm we fell into. I loved coming home from work to find him already there, or having him come home to me, the way we'd share stories about our days over dinner. This is nice, I said one evening as we sat on the back porch, watching the sun set over our small yard. Our yard. The possessive pronoun still gave me a little thrill. What is this? Us. Being domestic and boring and happy. Marcus laughed, the sound warm and familiar. Are we boring? The best kind of boring. He reached over and took my hand, our fingers intertwining automatically. It was such a simple gesture, but it still made my heart skip after all this time. I have something to tell you, he said, and something in his tone made me look at him more closely. Good something or bad something? Good something, I think. He took a deep breath. My sister called today. Marcus's sister Elena had been the first family member to accept our relationship, though it had taken her some time to come around. She was younger than Marcus by 5 years, married with 2 small children, and had initially been as confused as their parents by our relationship. What did she say? She wants us to come to dinner next weekend. Her and David and the kids. This was significant. Elena had been slowly warming up to us over the past few months, but this would be the first time she'd specifically invited both of us to a family gathering. That's great, I said. There's more. Marcus squeezed my hand. She said she talked to Mom and Dad, told them they were being idiots, that they were going to lose me if they didn't get their act together. My heart jumped with hope, but I tried to keep my expression neutral. And she thinks they're starting to come around. Slowly. But she thinks they're realizing that pushing me away isn't going to change anything. It's just going to cost them their son. The possibility of reconciliation with his parents felt almost too good to hope for. It had been so long since Marcus had talked to them regularly, so long since he'd been able to share the good things in his life with them. How do you feel about that? I asked. Scared, he said honestly. Hopeful. Terrified that I'm getting my hopes up for nothing. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together, I said. I know. He brought our joined hands to his lips, pressed a soft kiss to my knuckles. I love you for that. For always being willing to handle things together. That's what partners do. Partners, he repeated, like he was testing the word. I like that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both of us lost in our own thoughts. The word partners felt significant, more serious than boyfriends, more committed. It felt like a step toward something bigger, something permanent. Dinner at Elena's the following weekend went better than either of us had dared to hope. Her husband David, who had always been friendly but somewhat distant, made an effort to include me in conversations about work and sports. The kids, who had been initially shy around me, warmed up quickly, especially when I helped them build an elaborate fort out of couch cushions. You're good with them, Elena said as we watched Marcus and me play some complicated game the kids had invented. They're great kids, I said. They like you. That's not always easy to earn. After dinner, as we were helping clean up, Elena pulled Marcus aside. I could see them talking quietly in the kitchen, could see the hope and nervousness on Marcus's face. When they came back to the living room, Elena looked at me directly for the first time all evening. I owe you an apology, she said. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. I've been difficult about this. About you and Marcus. And that wasn't fair. You were protecting your brother, I said. I understand that. Maybe at first. But then I was just being stubborn and close-minded. She took a deep breath. The truth is, I've never seen Marcus as happy as he is with you. Even when we were kids, he was always so serious, so focused on taking care of everyone else. But with you, he laughs more. He smiles more. He seems lighter. The words hit me harder than I'd expected, and I had to blink back sudden tears. He makes me happy too, I said. I can see that, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see it, to accept it. She looked at both of us. You're family now, Jake. Both of you. Whatever happens with Mom and Dad, you're family. Marcus was crying openly now, and I wasn't far behind. Elena hugged us both, fierce and warm, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe things were going to be okay. The breakthrough with Elena seemed to open something up in the family dynamic. Over the next few weeks, Marcus started getting more frequent calls from his parents. The conversations were still somewhat stilted, but they were trying, asking about his work, about the house, even occasionally asking about me. Mom wants to know if you like to cook, Marcus told me after one of these calls. Why? I don't know. She just asked. It was a small thing, but it felt significant. His mother was trying to get to know me, trying to find common ground. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The real test came in November, when Elena called to invite us to Thanksgiving dinner. Mom and Dad will be there, she warned Marcus. But I want you there too. Both of you. It's time. Marcus looked at me, uncertainty written all over his face. What do you think? I think we should go, I said. I think it's time. The days leading up to Thanksgiving were tense with anticipation. Marcus was nervous, second-guessing everything, worried about how the day would go. I was nervous too, but also determined. This was important, Not just for Marcus's relationship with his parents, but for our future together. If we were going to build a life together, his family needed to be part of it. What if they're awful to you? Marcus asked the night before. Then we'll leave, I said simply. But Marcus, what if they're not? What if they're ready to try? What if I'm not ready? I turned to face him in our bed, reached out to touch his face. You are ready. You've been ready for months. You miss them, and they miss you, and everyone's too stubborn to make the first move. You think this will work? I think it's worth trying. Thanksgiving Day dawned cold and clear, the kind of perfect autumn day that makes everything feel possible. We drove to Elena's house in relative silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Marcus's hands were tense on the steering wheel, and I could see the muscle jumping in his jaw. Hey, I said, reaching over to touch his leg. Whatever happens today, I love you. That doesn't change. I love you too, he said, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Elena's house was warm and welcoming, filled with the smells of turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie. The kids ran to greet us at the door, chattering excitedly about the decorations they'd made and the games they wanted to play. It felt normal, comfortable, like family. Marcus's parents were already there, sitting in the living room with drinks. When we walked in, there was a moment of awkward silence, everyone unsure of how to navigate this new dynamic. Marcus, his mother said, standing up. Jake. Mom, Marcus said, and I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. She crossed the room and hugged him, a real hug, not the polite, distant embraces they'd been exchanging. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I've missed you, Mijo, she said. I've missed you too, Mom. She turned to me then, and for a moment I wasn't sure what to expect. But then she stepped forward and hugged me too, brief but genuine. Thank you for making him happy, she said quietly, so only I could hear. The words were simple, but they meant everything. Dinner was easier than any of us had expected. Conversation flowed naturally, helped along by the kids' endless chatter and Elena's determined cheerfulness. Marcus's father asked me about my work, actually listened to my answers, even offered some advice about dealing with difficult clients. His mother complimented the wine I'd brought, asked for the name of the vineyard. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of awkwardness, still topics that were carefully avoided. But it was a start, a foundation we could build on. After dinner, as we were all sitting around the living room, full and content, Marcus's father cleared his throat. I want to say something, he said, and the room went quiet. Marcus tensed beside me, and I reached for his hand, squeezing gently. Your mother and I, we owe you both an apology, he continued. We've handled this badly. We let our own fears and prejudices get in the way of what was important. Dad, Marcus started, but his father held up a hand. Let me finish. We were so focused on what we thought your life should look like that we couldn't see what it actually looked like. And what it looks like is happy. You're happy, Marcus. Happier than we've ever seen you. And Jake, you're clearly a good man who loves our son very much. I felt tears prick at my eyes, and Marcus's hand tightened in mine. We can't promise we'll understand everything, his mother added. We can't promise it won't be an adjustment for us. But we can promise to try. We can promise to love you both, because you're our family. You are our family, she said, looking directly at me. Both of you. Marcus was crying openly now, and so was I. Elena was sniffling, and even David looked emotional. The kids, sensing the importance of the moment even if they didn't understand it, had gone uncharacteristically quiet. Thank you, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for trying. Thank you for being patient with us, his father replied. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of warmth and laughter and the kind of comfortable family chaos I'd always envied in other people's homes. Marcus's parents asked me about my family, made plans to meet them soon. They talked about Christmas, about wanting us both there, about traditions they wanted to share. As we were getting ready to leave, Marcus's mother pulled me aside. I want you to know, she said, that I see how much you love him. I see how you take care of him, how you make him laugh. That matters to me more than anything else. He takes care of me too, I said. We take care of each other. That's how it should be. She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. That's how I know this is real, this is right. Because you're partners. You're a team. Driving home that night, both of us were quiet, processing everything that had happened. It felt like a weight had been lifted, like we could finally breathe freely again. That went well, Marcus said finally, and I could hear the wonder in his voice. It did. My mom likes you. Your dad does too, I think. They both do. He reached over and took my hand. We're going to be okay, aren't we? All of us. Yeah, I said, squeezing his fingers. We're going to be okay. That night, as we lay in bed in our house, our home, I thought about everything that had brought us to this moment. The friendship that had grown into something deeper, the fear and uncertainty and courage it had taken to acknowledge our feelings, the challenges we'd faced and overcome together. I have something to tell you, Marcus said in the darkness, echoing his words from that night almost 2 years ago when everything had changed. Good something or bad something? I asked, playing my part in our familiar script. Good something, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. The best something. He turned on the bedside lamp, and I saw that he was holding a small velvet box. My heart stopped, then started beating double time. Jake, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion I could see in his eyes. You said once that when you look at us, you see home. Well, you are my home. You're my best friend, my partner, my everything. I can't imagine my life without you in it, and I don't want to try. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band that somehow managed to be exactly perfect. Will you marry me? He asked. The question hung in the air between us, full of promise and possibility and all the love we'd built together. I looked at this man who had been my friend for so many years, who had become my lover, my partner, my family, and felt my heart overflow with certainty. Yes, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. Yes, of course, yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for me. Like everything about us, like everything about this love we'd discovered and nurtured and fought for. I love you, he said, pulling me into his arms. I love you too, I replied, and kissed him with all the joy and gratitude and hope I felt for our future together. Outside, the world continued on, oblivious to the fact that everything had just changed again. But inside our home, in our bed, in our arms, everything was exactly as it should be. We were exactly as we should be. Together.